Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special trimulcast of the Neil Haley Show, the Storehouse Media Group podcast, and Jesus and Ugly Jody with our host, Jody Corbett. Jody, you have another great guest for us today. I'm really excited.
I do. This is my dear friend Mike Freix. Mike Freix is in a men's prayer group with me on Thursday mornings at church. He's got a great message for us today. Mike, thanks for coming on with us. We appreciate your time this morning.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you. Enjoying it and looking forward to it.
So, Mike, one of the things we love to talk about here on Jesus and Ugly Jody is faith, leadership, and purpose. I know your story, but most of the people listening likely will not. So let's start off with the most important thing, your faith. Walk us through kind of your faith journey, and where you were, how you encountered Jesus, and where he's brought you from there.
Okay. I guess I'll start off by saying that I was a practicing Catholic until about 7, 8 years ago. And when I was a Catholic and I was starting to doubt the Catholic rituals and everything, it was the same time when the child abuse thing was going on with the Catholic Church, and it was just making me ask a lot of questions. And around that same time, my daughter was in a Bible study with a gentleman Dennis, Patrick Dennis, who leads a lot of study groups, Bible studies with high school students. And New Life was having a yearly mission trip to Kentucky. She went on it, came back and said, Dad, you got to go on this mission trip. It was really cool, da da da. So next year I went with her and had a good time. I actually invited my other daughter too. And on the way back home, I was being trained by a leader because I was my first time there. So I was kind of under the wings. He mentioned, hey, there's this men's group called Band of Brothers. I go, okay, what's that? They go, oh, they sit around and talk about the Bible. And I said, oh, I'm not really into the Bible because I go to the Catholic Church and I don't read the Bible. So I decided to check out. I went to one of their meetings, and it was kind of laid back. They were serving food, which was kind of unusual. And I would say for the first couple years, I just kind of sat in the corner and listened as they went through the different chapters, different devotionals, and just kind of sucked it all in. Um, well, that led to me going to the mission trip again and again. And through that process, I I was thinking it was a time in my life when I was also thinking I need to do something different in my life. I was about 55. I was looking towards retiring soon, and I said I need to do something different. But I didn't know what that was. And it wasn't until I started going to this Band of Brothers and started listening to what the Bible said about what Jesus did and the gospel and everything. At that point, I actually started questioning the Catholic Church even more, and I went on a mission trip with the Catholic community. I met a seminarian who was studying to become a priest, and I invited him to my house for some questions about the Catholic Church. And I said, "Why are these rituals? I don't understand this. I don't see that in the Bible. What's this thing about having to confess to a priest?" So I started questioning, and when I asked him the questions, he goes, "Well, it really doesn't say it in the Bible. It's kind of man-made. They called it the magisterium. I never heard of that word, and I was a Catholic for 45 years or whatever." And as soon as he told me it really wasn't in the Bible, it was kind of man-made rules and traditions. I realized at that point that that wasn't for me. And I started going to New Life like the next Sunday and been going ever since. And but the other big point, so that was kind of got me into reading the Bible more and really realizing that there's a lot more to it than what the Catholic Church was telling me. My wife had challenged me about 7 years ago to pick a word to define my year. And through various, I would say, God moments and God things led me to the word surrender. I really
Mhm.
didn't know what it meant, but I've been hearing it in church. I've been reading about it in Bible studies, and I said, I'm going to pick surrender. And my wife said, that's a good word. That's a deep, my wife likes me to be deeper than I usually am. So I started just reading about surrender. I read this book, Purpose Driven Life. It's by Rick Warren, and chapter 10 was all about surrendering. And I just read that book, that chapter over and over and over, just tried to get a feel for it. And so that year I spent kind of learning about what surrender meant. I'm not saying I really surrendered anything, but I was just kind of trying to learn about it. And that led to the next year. My wife goes, "You got to pick a word for the next year." And I picked I went to a funeral like in December before the new year, and the word that jumped out at me was make a difference, because the whole sermon at the funeral was that this lady made a difference in someone's life. And so I picked that. I know it's not one word, but I still picked it. And that year, I kept a journal, and I was convicted of making a difference in someone's life every day. Just even, it could be small things, but I had to be intentional. I had to think about it. Every day woke up and I said, okay, how am I going to make a difference in someone's life? And ended up I realized I can't sit at home. I was retired at this time. I couldn't sit at home and make a difference. I mean, I guess I could, but so I started going out and just meeting people. And I would started talking to the homeless folks and talking about their stories, learning about them. And that led me to making this nonprofit called Make a Difference Nova, which was trying to help the homeless. Uh, and I'm starting to realize that there's a lot more to being this faith journey than just reading the Bible. It's really serving others and loving others, no matter what their situation. Not saying it's always easy, but it started getting that. So that's why I started this nonprofit, and I just started then walking with a number of homeless folks and trying to show them their worth and that they were important to the world. And that worked that worked that worked out pretty good. I even met a lady who was a single mom. She started coming to Bible study with me, and I'm still in touch with her. That was after 7 years. She's working now. She's actually going to get off government subsidies in the next couple months, and it's just kind of a neat journey we've been through. Um, During that
So,
time frame, helping the homeless, a lot of them had old cars, and I had a gentleman I was helping out who needed his car was dying. He couldn't get to work. He had to bring water. The radiator was always leaking. And I was at a men's breakfast probably about 4 years ago and introduced to a gentleman, complete stranger, who happened to be a mechanic. And he shared that he actually wanted to give back to the community with his skills. And I said, well, I got a buddy, a client who needs his car worked on so he can get to work. So he fixed the car, and that started my discussions with him about, hey, do you want to maybe do this bigger time? Start a nonprofit. I said, I could start a nonprofit. You're the mechanic. Let's go ahead and start this nonprofit to get cars and give them to people. And that's what started Lazarus Motor Works. I
Mike, we'll
also,
jump into that in just a second. I do want to circle back with you. So you had the word surrender. God had kind of put that on your heart.
yeah.
Um, there was a point where you did surrender, and were baptized in Jesus' name.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Walk us through that. What happened there?
Yeah. So because I was a Catholic, I was baptized. Always thought I was. And Pat Ferguson, the executive director or executive pastor at New Life, as I started coming to New Life and meeting people and being in men's group, it came up that I was never really fully immersion baptized. And so he was asking me, when are you going to do that? And I said, well, I've already been baptized. I don't need to do that. But then as I started thinking about it and learning more about baptism, I ran into I ran into a very strong Christian, Tim Madorma, and he actually was talking about baptism on one of our mission trips. I started thinking about it, and at first it was kind of embarrassing why should I do that? I've already been baptized, but I kind of learned that no, baptism is a little bit different. You're surrendering, you're making a proclamation or in front of people and saying, I've sinned, I want to be saved. And after much prodding by Pat Ferguson, I finally decided I would do it. And that was about 3 years ago, June of 2023. And it's been great ever since. It's really it's really made me realize that this whole surrender thing is so much more deeper than just, oh yeah, I can stop worrying about money, or I can stop doing this. It's really surrendering more of your life and trust to God. And so anyway, does that answer the
No, that's a
question, Jody?
great, that's a great. So, and I, I think you and I have shared. So that was, I got confirmed when I was 13 because my parents told me I had to go to this class and get confirmed. Neil, I don't know your story, but I
Yeah.
suspect we're all kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was 20 that I got baptized, and I accepted Christ as an adult on my own, and as you talked about, surrendered. So,
Hmm. So,
um,
so Mike, I guess I'm interested in this whole car. This is a very interesting idea. So you had your homeless foundation, and then you saw there was an absolute need uh, for people who need cars, right? To
Right,
be able
right,
to, because you can't get a job without a car.
right,
It's very
exactly.
difficult.
Yeah, especially in Washington, D.C. area because there's no metro that comes way out to the suburbs. Yeah, so I was just sharing on every Tuesday for about probably for about 6, 7 years. I've been having a men's call with number of men on Tuesday, and I was just mentioning the story, the God story about meeting this mechanic, and he helped my client, within days. It was just kind of a neat story. And the guy on the phone, one of the guys that was on the Zoom call with said, "Hey, call me when you get off, when we get off." I said, "Okay." So his name is Dan Hike. I called him. He goes, "Mike, my wife and I have been talking about starting a car ministry." I said, "Whoa, I said, "Hey, I can start nonprofits. I've done it before." And so that's how we came up. And then he came up with Lazarus something else, not Motorworks, but Lazarus Cars or something. And then we employed Patrick Dennis, who's a creative marketing guy, to come up with a brand, and he came up with Lazarus Motorworks. But basically, it's pretty simple. We get cars either through donations or we buy them. I've 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 begun to form partnerships with dealers who can go to auctions and get cars at a decent price. And then we're up to like 5 mechanics who are supporting us pro bono. Just recently met a 21-year-old kid who's on fire for Jesus, and he just wants to help out. And he has a full-time job, yet he'll spend time working on cars as need be. We've been going for almost 3 years. We started in August of 23. We've given away about 50 cars over that time frame, and I've met a lot of people, and we've been able to actually. One of the partners I work with is somebody who works with the Afghan refugees that have come over from Afghan, obviously, but they're SIVs, special immigration visas. They help the Americans while we were at war there, so they get special privileges. And he's a military veteran, and he's kind of just um, taken it on. He has about 20 Afghan families that he's works with and helps them and gets them food and gets them clothing. And he found out about me, and we've given cars to probably 15, 20 Afghan refugees um, throughout this process. And it's been neat. He has no problem sharing Jesus with these Afghan refugees. They're mostly Muslim, and we just kind of say we're doing this because we believe this is how God wants us, how Jesus wants us to share our resources, and that we love you. We don't want anything in return. And he goes through the whole gospel usually whenever we're with them. So it's kind of neat. Um, anyway,
And
Yeah.
Mike, you guys have helped. I know single moms, other folks in need that have had a big impact from your ministry. Any other stories you want to share from the impact of Lazarus before we move on to the next topic?
oh, no, just what's really neat is especially the Afghan refugees. They invite us in their house. They serve us usually dinners, and it's interesting learning their culture, especially how they not treat the women, but the women are different than the men. They never sit with us. So it's just interesting learning about that. But I would say the biggest impact is that one lady that I met a number of years ago, and she had two kids, and she's just come through. We walked together, and through her struggles, we gave her a car. She ended up having an accident with it, but that happens. But she bought her own car. It's just kind of neat to see her walk through and work. She was standing on a corner, living out of hotels, to now she actually has an apartment and is feeding her kids, raising her kids, um, and just living life like a normal human being. So,
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you had mentioned the veteran you're working with. You also are a veteran, Mike.
yes.
Obviously served in the United States Navy. Also had a very successful career in the corporate space as well. So one of the things that we like to talk about here is leadership. What are some leadership traits or examples that you found that God gave to you or embedded or blessed you with that helped to make you a more successful or better leader that you could share with folks listening today who want to be better leaders, who want to be servant leaders that God called them to be?
Okay. Yeah. I think probably one of the biggest ones is that it's important to delegate when you're a leader. Because I know that I'm naturally a micromanager. I want things done my way. I know how to do it. I think I know how to do it. And it was really hard for me to delegate to my subordinates. But I realized the more I did that, the more they grew, and actually they have some good ideas and everything. And as I think about my faith journey, in a way, I'm kind of delegating my life to God. I'm letting him take control. I'm surrendering to him. And when I'm delegating to a subordinate, I'm surrendering the project or whatever he's working on to him, so that if he makes a mistake, he makes a mistake, but that's how we learn. So I kind of look at it that way. Um, I had to learn how to trust my team. And the way I learned how to trust them is by getting to know them, getting to know their skills, getting to learn what they were passionate about. And it's kind of the same thing with God. You kind of have to get to learn God or know God before you can surrender to Him. So to me, those are two things that I do. The other one thing I wanted to say about leadership is I also, when I was in the military, I knew that I was an officer and that my subordinates had to, follow my orders. But I also realized that unless I show them love and trust and understanding, it doesn't go very far. They're just going through the motions. But when I was able to bond with my team, I could tell that they wanted to do things for me, vice me making them do stuff. So, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah. And I guess in what you learned as a leader has changed over time, it sounds like as well, Mike.
Oh, yes,
I
yes.
mean, from your retired to now as a leader and defining do you have a better patience level as a leader now than you did when you were in the military and also in your corporate job now
I would
with
say
your,
yes. I would say yes. I think I have more compassion. I understand that everybody is walking in their own shoes. Um, and what really is, I realize that my way is not always the best way. It's taken a while, but people have very good ideas, and you just have to be open to listen to them. I also wanted the thing I kind of thought about and forgot about was I've learned to lead by example. I realized that if I lead by example, they get to know me and learn from me and trust me, and then I can then ask them to follow me when I need them to follow me. But it's so being that example where at times when I was young, I was just kind of a young whippersnapper. My way is my way, and that's not going to work. I need to show them that I'm a loving person, that I respect them and trust them, and then that'll go a long way.
Yeah, I always love talking to CEOs or other, organizational leaders, and they're always so busy. And I say, man, we've heard how many sermons now, Mike, about,
Yeah. Yeah,
Hurry is the way the devil keeps us busy, right?
right,
The
right.
devil always wants us to be so busy that we can't spend time with the Lord. Well, if you don't put margin in your life, if you don't delegate, if you don't allow and empower other people to take over certain projects or programs, um, you're going to always be busy. You're always going to be in a hurry, and that's going to keep you from being able to spend time in the Word, to spend time praying, to spend time attending men's groups or women's groups or couples groups,
Yeah,
to deepen your faith. And I think that to me is one of the big things with leadership is it's almost like a time management, but not a time management for how can you get more work done, but how can you enable the power of the Holy Spirit to work in and through you and in and through your business, in order to let the good men and women you've hired do the things that you've hired them to do,
sure, sure.
and like you said, let them come with their creative thoughts and their, you know, different ways of thinking or looking at problems and coming up with strategic solutions for them. So.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely. And where we go from there, Mike, so basically your ministries for our listeners and viewers to understand, which are ministries that you have a couple foundations, right?
Right.
Organization. Okay.
Yes, one of them is called Make a Difference Nova, which helps the homeless. That's probably not as active because that takes a lot more of my personal time because I really, instead of just giving them food or giving them clothes, I wanted to walk with them and bring them from point A to point B. And that takes a lot of time and effort, and there were a lot of failures too, but that's they're walking in their own shoes, and that they chose maybe not to accept what I wanted to offer them. And then the one that's really been uh, taking a lot of my time up is the Lazarus Motor Works, which I do a lot of. I'm not the mechanic. I do all the admin and all the interfacing with all the clients and figuring out who we need to give cars to, where I have all the mechanics working on cars and fixing cars and making them safe and all that stuff.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. Okay. Do you have websites for those that people can check it out?
I have a website for the Lazarus Motor Works. It's
Okay.
pretty, it's lazarusmotorworks.org, one word. And there's things you can donate on there. You can ask for a car. You can donate a car, and you can volunteer. So
Okay. All right. And Jody, people can check and follow you where?
Obviously on my LinkedIn, and also on my YouTube TV channel.
All right. Go to YouTube, Jody Corbett. Go ahead and follow him on LinkedIn. Make sure also you go to his website as well. And that website, Jody, is?
SLS.consulting.
All right. Appreciate it. That was the special Traumocast of the Neil Haley Show, the Storehouse Media Group podcast, and Jesus and Ugly Jody, guys. Take care.